You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome back to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 237, and my name is Clark from 5cardguys.com and 5cardguys on Instagram. With me, co-hosting as usual, is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards on Instagram, and John, who is Trade You at Recess. All right, let's get right into it. Off the top, there was a huge vintage basketball card sale a couple of weeks ago. I'm talking about, of course, the 1961-62 Fleer rookie card of Wilt Chamberlain. It's a crazy story of how it was discovered. Long story short, the card was in the closet of a grocery store for about 60 years. Right?
Crazy.
Yeah. Then the owner, who I guess wanted to remain anonymous, he went to his local card shop, LCS, and the rest is history. And you might have seen SGC President Peter Steinberg on Instagram announce that they graded the card and it came back a perfect SGC 10. And the recent news is that Golden, they brokered a private sale for the card for $1.7 million. So, question, what do you think of the $1.7 million sale? And next, which card would you rather have? All right. This Wilt Chamberlain rookie card or the Wemby superfractor auto Topps Chrome, which I just saw a rumor for that someone is now offering $1.2 million for. So first, what do you think of the sale, and which one would you rather have out of those two cards?
Well, that's Pop 1, right? The SGC?
10, yes.
It's Pop. It's a Pop 1?
Yeah.
I believe so.
I believe it is, right?
There's no PSA 10, right?
Yeah, I don't think there is. Yeah, I think it's a big card. Yeah. I think it's a big card for SGC. SGC as well. You said it was 1.7?
Yes.
I'm not surprised. Like, at the end of the day, there's only a few GOATs. Like, if you were to say like a Jordan or LeBron, one of one, the card that, is the holy grail, I would put that in that category. And we've seen Lukas, we've seen Giannis's, we've seen all these modern players sell that much. And we always said on this podcast for the last 2-3 years, like, in the long term, vintage will always win. It always has been, and it always will, because as it ages, it gets more scarce and more valuable. And the more people that come into this card collecting community, the pop count doesn't change. So the supply versus demand always is going to be in your favor in these. So I think it's a massive card. I think it's a massive card for SGC to have it in a newer SGC slab too. So I think I think it's justified for sure. Like the price. I think maybe it might even be a good deal at 1.7, to be honest.
Sure. I could see that.
Complete side note. I'm just thinking about SGC's branding. I wonder if it would do well for them to have a separate vintage style slab for their vintage cards rather than have it in the same old slab that you would have it, like a $10 SGC 10 versus like a Wilt Chamberlain SGC 10. I wonder if it's worth it for them to have like a vintage slab or something different that kind of recognizes their vintage grading. Because I think if they kind of revert back to their branding of being like a vintage grader, I think it could work pretty well for them. But anyways, side note.
I like that but I would have to see the design, because the old SGC branding didn't look that great either.
Right.
Vintage cards.
Right.
Yeah. I get your point though.
Yeah. But in terms of the two, I'm with Hyung. Like, from the video, I'm understanding, like, great video by the SGC president, by the way. That was pretty exciting to watch. I think it's the only 10 out there. There might be like a BGS 95. I don't know. But anyways, this is, regardless, it's sounding like this is the highest graded Wilt Chamberlain in existence. I mean, this kind of a card, this is quintessential like vintage basketball. This is one of the most iconic vintage basketball. It deserves to be in a museum. So I think it's a pretty easy choice. The Wemby superfractor, I think people can kind of argue, yeah, but the Wemby is at current. He's just scratching the surface. This is a card that could go to 3 million. I think it's very valid. It's definitely a valid point. But Wemby right now is so hyped, deservingly hyped, but so hyped. The price is already kind of baked in that he's going to be like a top 10, for sure, top 20 NBA basketball of all time. Like at this point, for his superfractor to go to 2-3 million, he's got to be winning multiple championships. He's going to start averaging 30 points a night, 15 rebounds, 10 blocks, which he might, but he's going to have to really start to do stuff that's really, really spectacular because of it's already baked in. It's already baked in that he's spectacular. So I think for me, the Wilt Chamberlain is a super easy choice, regardless of even if the pricing is pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, this is like our preliminary pick one, and it's going to be a Wilt Chamberlain sweep. Mm-hmm. But that, I ask, of course, because there's this extreme hype on Wemby cards. But kind of what you're saying, the unknown factor for Wemby is longevity of career, and that you can't predict, right? Yep. You can get injured at any point, and then things can come crashing down quickly, right? So, I do want to add this one thing, and I don't know if this changes your mind for both of you. There's 3 PSA 10s of that Wilt Chamberlain card.
Oh, there is. Ooh.
I'm still
one
going
SGC
with
10 and one BGS 9.
Mm.
Those are the highest grades.
Yeah, I'm still going with the Wilt. That's low enough pop to, because if you look at it, those PSA 10s I guarantee are in safes at really, really wealthy people's collections that nobody even knows where it is, right? So, and like you got at that level, I was just looking through like Dimitri Young's collection where, he has super rare Hank Aaron's, and I think he has the only Roberto Clemente PSA 10. Like it says Dimitri Young collection on the slab. So it's like, these are well-known, very, very iconic cards that, only, 2 PSA exists, 1 SGC exists. To me, that's as good as a 1 of 1. I'll take that any day. Yeah, over a Wemby.
Right. Now I'm recalling the video. What's his face? The SEC president was saying that, in his opinion, this is the nicest that he's seen in existence.
Right.
So I think he's saying that it's nicer than the PSA 10s that he's seen. So it's part of the marketing, but yeah, that's. I think it's. I still the SEC 10 Wilt for me the pick. It's too big of a card. That pop, what is that? Pop 4, pop 5 in terms of like gem mint. Yeah, it's an easy choice.
Yeah. I mean, if you looked at the card, I saw a picture of it. It looks beautiful. Like,
it does look centered, good.
Yeah. Sharp corners, like he said, like Peter said.
Mm-hmm.
Color looks great. Yeah. And it's kind of what you said too with the, the type of people that hold these cards are the type of people that will be on the next Netflix golden shows, where he goes to their houses and talks to them about, their collection, and then someone brings it out from their vault. Yeah, you're talking about those kind of collectors at this point, right? So whoever bought that 1.7 million, I think I agree with you, Hyung. I think that's a deal. If you hold for 10, 20 years, I think it'll only go up. But all right, so that's a Wilt Chamberlain sweep. All right, let's move on to our next segment we call Hobby Headlines. Okay, another piece of big hobby news that I feel like went under the radar a little bit is the news that Shohei Ohtani signed an exclusive sports card deal with Topps. Previously, he had signed a non-exclusive deal with Topps in 2017-2018, but according to David Leiner, president of trading cards at Fanatics Collectibles, this is a similar exclusive deal to the one LeBron James signed earlier this year. Now, let me read a quick quote from Leiner in an interview with ESPN about this deal. He says, "We want to change the way our athlete partnership group works. Historically, trading card companies would stick 1,000 cards in front of an athlete in a hotel room on the road or something, scribbling away. It's no secret these guys make a lot of money, but we want true partnerships, 360 deals. They're going to sign their cards, that's part of the gig, but there's bells and whistles, marketing and partnering on the category, social media, and we're trying to, like with LeBron, bring Shohei into the family and have a true partnership, end quote. And one more quote on MLB.com, Liner says, with this new exclusive deal, Topps will continue to be innovative in our offerings with him, giving collectors product that's never before been seen in the hobby, all while bringing them closer to this once-in-a-lifetime player, end quote. So a few things to unpack here. First, what are your initial thoughts about this exclusive deal between Shohei and Topps? And if it's more than exclusive autograph cards, as Liner suggests here, what do you hope this means for collectors?
Well, one, I think, again, not to hang off Fanatics' sack here, but like we're like they're playing a different game, man. I'm telling you, it's like these are the things that actually matter to move a business forward, especially a guy like Shohei Ohtani or LeBron James. Like,
right.
If you're able to do that, like, you're in a whole different game than the old Topps. Like, the old Topps, literally, I remember when I was in the minor leagues, and you know, you everybody gets like a check for like, I want to say like $20. It's a joke, like minor league. It's from Topps, but basically saying, you're signing your autograph away, and that was the extent of it. If you're a pretty decent player or a big prospect, you get $5-10 grand, and then you have to sign a bunch of cards, and that was the deal. That was the extent of the partnership with Topps. It's like, oh, we get another check or whatever it may be, right? So to me, that was the extent of the partnerships. With Fanatics having their resources and what they're able to do, and not only what they're able to do, but actually make it better, the experience for collectors. So for instance, I'm in a Shohei Ohtani collectors group, and jerseys are signed jerseys at Fanatics at retail, selling for like $5K.
Damn.
So if they're selling at $5K jerseys, we're not even talking about game worn, just signed Ohtani jerseys with the newer Ohtani autographs.
Right.
Right? And then if it's an exclusive deal, meaning Shohei ain't signing anything, that creates a massive, massive, massive supply demand. And Fanatics controls that. And to me, it's like, that's kind of what you want. You want scarcity. You don't want the Pete Rose autograph that you can get for $20, you know, in Las Vegas at, you know, the Circus or whatever it may be, right? Because there's always going to be a resale value that really isn't true value at the end of the day. But then part of the reason why there's a huge chase of LeBron, for instance, LeBron autos, Steph Curry autos, all these, because they don't sign anymore. Right? It's very hard to get these autographs. And as is right now, it's so hard to lock down a good Shohei Ohtani on-card auto.
Yeah.
But that's what's going to keep the hype going. And as long as Ohtani keeps on doing what he's doing, it's ridiculous. Right? I think there's always going to be a demand for it, a huge demand. And that's what I think they're playing that card really well is Fanatics is, and to go further in the experience, it's like, yes, I would love to win something other than, like, what if it was an Ohtani experience? It had nothing to do with autographs, but now it's like, let's just say you win a trip for 2 to LA and you have dinner with Shohei Ohtani. Not saying that would happen, but now you're creating this huge demand that has nothing to do with sports cards, but it's in sports cards that you could potentially experience because it's these partnerships that Fanatics are locking down, these relationships with these athletes, saying it's a two-way street, not just a one-way street, right? And to me, that's so important from a business side of things.
Yeah, that's huge,
right?
for sure.
So I'm for it. And like I said, I'm not paid by Fanatics. I just love what they're doing. They're thinking outside the box. People think Fanatics is ruining the hobby. Honestly, if you're in that perspective, you gotta like stop, go outside, zoom out like 100-fold in your microscope, right? And then see the bigger picture of what's actually happening in this industry. And to me, that's the most important thing, is you're seeing relevant change that is actually going to make an impact in our future of, you know, the hobby itself. So for me, I'm all on board with exclusive deals, because anybody could have done it, but nobody did, right? Fanatics did.
No, I like those points.
Yeah. I think it's been pretty well known that the three of us have been sort of Fanatics fanboys to an extent. But I'm gonna actually pull back a little bit. You know, the David Liner president, the first sentence he says, "We want to change the way our athlete partnership group works."
Yeah.
And I hope that is true. I hope that they are working towards that. But for me, this all kind of looks more, you know, like a bit of marketing jargon from him. Like, I don't know if this is really, you know, we want to change the way our partnership groups work with not all athletes. This is probably with 0.1% of the superstar athletes, not all the other guys that are your Joe Schmo regulars are going to be in hotels signing 5,000 autographs. They're going to be doing the exact same thing. Like, I can't, let's take away this marketing jargon and just call a spade a spade. You gave Shohei a boatload of money to not sign anywhere else except with Fanatics products, so that you can dominate the market, which is actually smart. And like, many other people have not done it in the past because they don't have that kind of money to be throwing at LeBron and Shohei to force them not to sign with anybody else, right? Like, you have that power. It's awesome because now you can control the market and the money for a Shohei autograph or a LeBron autograph, right? So good on them for having that power. Good on them. I think it's actually, as much as I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here, it's still great for the hobby. Like, I think for Shohei collectors, you know, if you have a Shohei autograph from the past, like, you're laughing because these cards are just going to continually go up and up and up. So I think it is good. I think for these 0.1% of athletes, the superstars, they are going to get the super partnering and marketing treatment, which is going to be really great for the fans. So overall, I think it's great. I just think this sort of this paragraph that he said, it's, you know, he's kind of trying to make it sound like he's going to do it for everybody, but I doubt we're going to see that unless they really have that much money to start doing these exclusive partnerships with like hundreds and hundreds of athletes. But who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. I didn't really think about that, but at the same time, as you're talking, you know, Fanatics is a business, right? So there's no incentive for them to do it for every athlete. You know, it's like Nike or any of the, you know, clothing brands. They're not going to sign everyone. They're going to sign the stars that they can profit off of, really, to tell you the truth, right? So I don't fault them. It's, you know, it's not like they're claiming to be a nonprofit to you know, they're not claiming to be a players union to, you know, benefit everyone, right? So it's a partnership in the sense that they're willing to work with some superstars essentially, or some stars in the league, right? So but yeah, I you know, maybe it does become a starting point though, you know, because, you know, you can't certainly sign everyone to these exclusive deals, but you might be able to, as the company profits, as the company makes more money, maybe you can bring B-level tier athletes. That could be maybe not, they don't have the wider appeal like Shohei or the superstars, but they might have some kind of appeal in their local hometowns. And they might sign those kind of like short-term exclusive deals to do something in the city they play in. Just thinking out loud, right? But yeah, I think you guys both mentioned this too, like the experiences. I think that's a huge thing, right? That they can offer beyond autograph cards or autograph relic cards. And, you know, Hyung and I, we were at Fanatics Fest recently. Can you imagine the next one, they get Shohei to appear? Like, they could do that. and it'll be a huge draw for any baseball fan, right? And it's going to be a win for them, you know, on the collectible space. That'll be, man.
There was another baseball player that was a collector. I forgot who it was. I want to say it was Chicago Cubs. I forgot who the player was, but he basically traded for superfractor, invited his own superfractor, and then invited it might have been Texas. I forgot who the player was, but he basically traded a regular collector for his superfractor. It wasn't even like the main Bowman Chrome super. It was like a like a insert auto or whatever. But in return, he was able to bring his kids. They got on the field, and then the guy was like, "I wouldn't trade this for the world. This is priceless to me." And to me, that's just kind of like that taste of what could potentially happen if you have the right partnerships with people willing to do it because they love everything about it as well, right? So that's kind of like what I love to see, and other athletes get involved from a choice perspective. It's not necessarily in their contract. Like you don't see Corbin Carroll or Wyatt Langford or all these other card collectors, Mike Trout, that are doing this because it's under contract. They're doing this because they actually love the hobby, which is insane.
Yeah, and I can't remember which article, but Shohei is a collector himself, they say, right? So he's invested in providing the best product, right?
Yeah.
Like they're like, oh, what would make this card cool? So on that kind of note, I didn't know this until I read it recently, but 2025 opening day for Major League Baseball has the Dodgers going to the Tokyo Dome to play the Chicago Cubs, which will be insane for the Japanese baseball fans out there. Off the top of your head, I know I didn't prep you guys for this, but with this exclusive deal that Shohei has, right? What would you like to see, or what could you envision that Fanatics do to really make use of this exclusive deal? So, for example, off the top of my head, they have exclusive cards, kind of like what they did with Fanatics Fest, right? They have exclusive cards released at the Japanese games, by the Tokyo Dome, kind of like a Topps Now, but he just signs it in his kanji autos. And that's going to generate how much money, how much attention, how much hype. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So that's just one idea. But yeah, what can you think of what they can do with this, MLB opening day in the Tokyo Dome with Shohei?
I think you hit it on the nail. I think a brand like Topps Now would be great, for that, because it's a moment. Like I said, they're going to start capitalizing on moments. It's stupid not to, and I know they're going to do it because that's what makes a sports fan at the end of the day. If you're a sports fan, you could recite any historic, like I could recite like even the 93 World Series, the 92 World Series of the Jays. And it was such an amazing series that I would watch over and over again on VHS, right? Like just the highlights and stuff. So, to have like a Joe Carter signed or, baseball card from that event would be insane. Like when he signed that. So I think it's the same thing where, they could sell the moment, which they are. And even MLB and, Fanatics, them working together, that's inevitable because I think it's in MLB's best interest to grow the game from a global perspective. I think they're losing over the last 30 years or so. It's been dominated on the western part of the world. And now they see the massive, massive fan base of baseball globally. So I think it's in their best interest to grow the game from a global scale. I think you're seeing it independently and from a Major League Baseball perspective. But not only that, Fanatics seeing that opportunity and partnering up with guys like MLB to bring that moment into a totally different audience, right? And this is what we were talking about, is like Fanatics sees that opportunity, and then that creates massive, massive amounts of hype and marketing, right? Yeah. And this is what we're talking about. It's not literally, hey, your cards are going to increase 10x. These are the things that will bring way more people into the hobby. And this is marketing 101. Like, this is marketing at its finest. It goes back to kind of like the amount of eyes that are there. And like you said, if they create the same hype that they do with like Wemby, which they are, like I could see, if there's a 1-of-1 Topps Now Ohtani kanji auto, insane. Like insane. people would offer so much for that, right? And
take my money.
And then in the mix of that, all it takes is Ken Golden, Jeff Wilson, you know, the Blez brothers to say there's $1 million bounty on it. All of a sudden you have enormous amounts of artificial hype as well, for that. So to me, it's like, that's exactly what is happening with our hobby and industry. So it's going to be massive. And to me, these are, if you're talking about this right now, I'm also in the off season looking for an Ohtani 2018 auto. Mm-hmm. You know, it gives me more reason to invest in maybe cards that I think maybe it's not the Japan auto in 2025, but it gives me more perspective of, hey, I think 2018 Ohtani autos and 2019 Ohtani autos will be a lot more in demand because of this. So it's like, that's kind of the way I see it is, you know, there's a lot of buying opportunities and stuff from it, not necessarily at that moment, but yeah, overall, I think it's massive. Yeah.
Yeah. And you kind of answered my second question, and maybe I'll throw it to John after this, but I was going to ask, you know, how much of an indent do you think signing Shohei to an exclusive deal like this can grow the hobby outside of the US? And just to give you some numbers, most of the sales are in the US. If you look at Topps numbers, it's about 90%, and less than 10% the business is outside of US, North America. And, you know, it looks like that Fanatics and Topps have been serious about growing, outside of the America here, right? They opened Fanatics office in Tokyo in 2018, and Topps opened their office in Tokyo in 2021. So they're already setting up base there.
I'll throw this out there too, just as a tidbit. Perfect Game, which is the largest, showcase amateur baseball. So all your Americans basically went through Perfect Game Showcase. Well, they're expanding out into Korea, and I assume Japan really soon. So they're buying into all this as well. So just to throw that out there, that's massive. Yeah. Perfect Game going globally is massive. They're a massive company.
Right. Wow. Yeah. So yeah, what do you think, John, about just these latest developments, and will something like this grow the hobby? You know, people hate the 10x term, but just essentially it's just a way of saying really grow the hobby by a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of little tidbits that they can do to garner some attention. You know, like a Topps specific card product, just at the opening day at the Dodgers Chicago in Tokyo. You know, maybe like a Japanese, kind of like similar to Pokemon, but like a Japanese version of Topps Chrome. I think it could garner some hype. There's a lot of tidbits I could do, but I mean, at the core of anything related to do with, you know, fandomship, if that's even a word, is everybody wants to feel like they own a piece of either a moment, and I think that's Topps now has huge potential. We've talked about it before, or the actual player. That's the whole purpose of fantasy basketball. Like if you own Luka in fantasy, especially like a dynasty keeper, you kind of feel like you own a part of Luka, which isn't true, but that's the feeling, right? If you get a sports card, rookie card, you kind of feel like you own a little bit of Steph Curry, right? So if Fanatics can continue to tap into, because that ownership can be in many ways, right? People maybe not into sports cards, but they'll buy a jersey. They're not into sports cards, but they'll go to the opening day and they'll buy a hat. Or they're not into anything else. They don't go to games, but they're into fantasy baseball, right? Like there's many different avenues, or they can bet, you know, like there's many different avenues where you can feel like you're part of the action, or you feel like you own a piece of the player. And if Fanatics can continue to do with the money that they have and the resources they have, and now like signing exclusive deals with certain superstars, they have the ability to continue to tap into that in very, very creative ways. I think that's how they're going to capture the worldwide sports audience more into sports cards. It's going to be it's not an easy answer to 10x it, but they certainly have opportunities to kind of go wiggle their way and navigate that. So
totally agree. And I bring this point all the time because I did talk about growing the hobby, and most of the growth right now is international, right? It's not by getting more kids involved, which is part of it, of course. It's not about getting different demographics involved, but internationally we're seeing major growth. And this is just a similar thing that we're seeing here to grow it even more so around the world. And I talked to Stephanie Mama Breaks about that, and we're seeing the fruits of that even in this early stage. And I think it can only be good for the hobby. I don't know how many times I say this on our podcast, but any kind of growth to just get attention on sports cards through superstar athletes, like, I don't know, obviously there are going to be people that miss what the hobby used to be, but like all things, and we've said this too on our pod, everything changes, everything evolves. And I think, there's going to be learning curves and learning mistakes. And as long as we learn from all of those things, then I just really bullish on the hobby. So I love hearing news like this. I think it's going to be great. And I'm sure this won't be the last big development. I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more. And yeah, can't wait to see this 2025 MLB opening day to see what they actually do, because I think it's going to be huge. All right. Let's move on to our next segment now, called Would You Rather? And this is kind of tying in with everything we talked about in this episode and even in our last episode. But I got 2 scenarios for you guys for each Would You Rather question. I want to see what you guys say about it. Okay. So first one, now that pretty much all of the superfractor cards of Wemby are pulled from the Topps Chrome basketball product, if you could get a Topps Chrome hobby box right now for retail, $300, would you rip it or flip it for $500? So I had this question myself. I ended up ripping it, and I should have probably flipped it. If you didn't see that video of my quote unquote hits, you can see it on YouTube. I'll include it in the show notes below. But would you rather rip the box right now that all the superfractors are done, or flip? And I'll go first. And I asked this question because I think I would rip again, to tell you the truth. I thought it was a fun rip. And, there are other Wemby cards there. And, I got 0 Wembys. Spoiler alert, I got 0 Wembys, which is crazy. But I think because of that, I would try again just to see if I could hit any Wemby. But anyway, what would you guys do?
I would personally rip at that price, even if the 1-of-1's pulled. I think there are other cards like the LeBron short print that is still high in demand. There's other Wemby autos that you could pull that are massive. So, like, to me, it wouldn't matter. I think I don't think the flip of $500 would satisfy me, to be honest, if I'm paying $300, because we talked about this in the last episode. If I'm ripping the Topps now, $1,000 is that kind of like right. that barrier. I think unless I was flipping to make like a few $100, like more than $500, I would definitely flip it. But like at this point, I think you're better off, having the experience and, try going, maybe you land a Wemby auto or a LeBron short print card. So I think that would be worth it in itself. But I would rip it at $500. Yeah. I wouldn't buy it at 500, but I would rip it at 500.
Okay. 2 rips.
Do you guys think the Topps Chrome hobby box is going to stay at 500 or go even higher or come lower?
I think 500 is a good number.
Like stay there?
I think so, because of the Topps Chrome brand. I think it's strong enough to just hold it there.
Okay. I think I kind of agree. So you get this one chance to buy for $300. It's probably going to stay at 500 for the foreseeable future. Maybe come down a bit. Maybe come down to 425 or 450.
Yep.
Yeah, if I have the one time to get it for 300. 300 is kind of the going hobby box rate for almost any major product. So I'm with you guys. If I can get it for 300, I'll have some fun. Rip it. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have a ripping session. I mean, we all do the Topps Chrome baseball ripping session anyway.
Yeah, we spend that much money anyways.
That costs us about 300 anyways. Yeah. So.
But guys, Topps Chrome baseball's licensed, all right? So
I know.
But Luis Robert is the chase.
Oh man, the good old days.
Yeah.
All right. Second question. Okay, we just talked about the long-term exclusive deal Shohei signed. So actually, you brought this up, Hyung. So I'm gonna formally ask it. So if there was a redemption card that gave you tickets to a World Series game with the Dodgers, assuming that the Dodgers get to the World Series, plus a signed Shohei bat and ball. Okay? Would you rather redeem that card or trade it in for a 2018 Bowman Chrome base auto PSA 10 of Shohei?
I'm taking the experience, man.
Okay.
I'm taking the experience for sure. Like for me, Bowman Chrome auto is a base auto at the end of the day. I know it's in demand.
12,000.
If we're talking color,
12,000.
yeah. If we're talking color,
yeah.
If we're talking color, totally different. But I think going to the World Series one is an experience in itself, and you know, at consolation you get a signed bat and jersey. He said,
and ball.
And ball, yeah. So to me, those are like I said, Fanatics is selling signed jerseys at $5,000, right? And people are probably buying them off the market. I would say they're probably like $2,000 to $3,000. So to me, it's like you're getting best of both worlds. And I'm a memorabilia collector too. So I'm not just a card collector. Right. So memorabilia is just as, if not like long term, I don't mind memorabilia over sports cards, to be honest. Like. And it includes the experience. The Bowman Chrome is a great card, and it's an iconic card. But if it's not color, then I can't choose that over the experience. I would choose the experience for sure.
All right,
that's a good one though.
Well, that's a good one. Oh, I like. You know, I can be very materialistic. I do like things over experience. A lot of the times, you know, as I've gotten older, when I was young, you know, once in a lifetime going to watch a Super Bowl, that was like a huge bucket list in terms of a sports fan. But now that I'm older, you know, sometimes I feel like, you know, going to a crazy concert, you know, like for Swifties, you know, is a bit overrated. Like going to the Super Bowl, like people might think I'm crazy, but I feel like I can enjoy it just as much at home or at a buddy's house as I would at the actual stadium. Now, is the experience worth $500? Yeah, sure. Why not? But, you know, would I pay $2,500 for tickets? Would I pay $10,000 for tickets? You know, is the enjoyment that much more crazier? I don't know, right? So, but you know, but you are getting it for free, so that's the thing. Like if it's for free and you get to enjoy it, it is. And you do get some consolations in terms of things. I'm 50-50. I think not trying to be a fan, because I don't even like, if I knew that the Jays were going to go, it would be a no-brainer. But as just a casual fan of whoever's going to be at the World Series, I think I'm going to go the other way. I'm still 50-50. I'm not saying that I'm like completely leaning towards it, but a $12,000 Shohei card could, you know, and it's autographed, as a sports card collector, that would be a dream to own. Or at the minimum, use that to trade into something else. That's a big boy card, and I think we're sports cards first and foremost on this podcast, so I'm gonna pick the sports card side, pick the card, and grow with the card, or do whatever I need to do with that card.
Yeah, no, there's no wrong answers here, no wrong answers. Yeah. But first, I can't believe you said the Taylor Swift concert's overrated. The Swifties are gonna go after you.
They'll murder me.
I'm on John's side on that one.
Okay, and two, I'm the opposite of you, John. Like, as I get older, I value experiences more, you know, than things in general. And, you know, don't get me wrong, I obviously love sports cards, and that Bowman Chrome is a dream card for me, even at a base card auto, right? But I'm gonna side with Hyung. I'd rather go to the World Series. I think the experiences and the consolation definitely helps too. So I think it would have been much harder if it was that versus the card versus just the World Series tickets, right? But with the signed bat and ball, yeah, you get the best of both worlds, in my opinion. All right, last would you rather question. Next year, now that we've seen what Fanatics Fest is like, the flagship Fanatics Fest event in NYC, would you rather go back to FFNYC next year, and you know they promise to make it better, or would you want to go to the National this time in Chicago?
Ooh. I think ideally you want to go to both because it's two different venues. But if I had to choose this next one, I would go to the National. I would go to the National to make it more of a sport card experience. I think that's what was lacking at Fanatics, and that's why you can't compare the two because they're two totally different demographics. I did like the experiences. I did like me as a sports fan just being there. And like I said, the food was amazing. Like that's to the tip of the iceberg. And that's why New York is such a great venue. Is the city is amazing. But in terms of like experience for a sports collector, I think, or sports card collector, I think the National would be my choice if I had to pick one. But I'm going to try to make it to both. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, I didn't think you would say that. Now I don't know what I'm gonna pick.
Oh yeah, you this is a good one for you because like no bias, right?
I had huge FOMO watching your videos. I was like, oh man, I should have been there.
Next year for sure. Next year.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was short. It was really short.
Yeah. You know, it's always, as a sports card collector, it's always been a dream to go to the National. So there's that where I'm like, oh man, I would kind of like what Hyung is saying. It's always been sort of a priority, anyways. But if coming from somebody who's hasn't been to one and perhaps can only choose one each and every year, like next year, National is kind of lucky because it's in Chicago. It's a great city. But for example, no knock on Cleveland, but if it was in Cleveland, I think for a lot of casual people coming from outside of driving distances, I think, Fanatics, you can probably bet they're going to be in New York City, or they're going to be in Los Angeles, or they're going to be in like Las Vegas or something crazy. So I think it makes it easier to kind of make a bigger trip out of it. So on a one-time basis, for me, I think I would pick Fanatics because you kind of get a bit of the sports card world. You get the traveling aspect to a really a really nice city, and then you get the sort of social media world, right? Like if a lot of people are fans of all the people in social media for sports cards, you'll see them there. You get to meet them. If you're and all the big boy dealers and a lot of people maybe you're interacting with on social media, they'll all be there. You'll get to meet not meet, but you'll see Derek Jeter walking around. You'll see Tom Brady walking around. All of that jazz. Right. So I think in terms of the entire experience of it, I think for a one-time shot, Fanatics would be my priority.
Yep, and for all those reasons, that's why I personally chose Fanatics Fest this year,
right,
over the National. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. But because of the fact that we did go, Hyung and I did go, for the exact same reason, I'm going to choose the National for next year. Mm-hmm. So the more interesting would you rather is the year after. I'll ask it again. So for Hyung and I, if assuming that we go to the National next year, which one do we rather go to if you had to choose one after the experiences of going to both? I'm curious to see what we would say.
But there will be multiple Fanatics Fest. That's something to note.
It's true.
Right? There will be multiple Fanatics Fest with different purposes, I guess. So
Orlando being the main card collector one, right?
Yeah, so I would be if that was that between the National, then I would want to still check out what Fanatics is about on that side, right? See how they perform. And that's I did a survey with Fanatics Fest too. You get it from the email, and that's one thing I said. It's like you need someone managing the sports cards, like just making the experience great for dealers, making it, because if you just say, okay, $3,500 is a booth, and then it's like, you guys go have fun, we'll be on the other side with the experiences. That's what it kind of felt like. So it's like, I want to see them trying on that side.
Yep. And that feedback survey, I also filled it out. I put, there needs to be a Fanatics Fest Toronto. So all you Canadian collectors, I got you. All right. We'll hope to see that come north of the border. Maybe next year or the year after. We'll see. All right. That concludes our Would You Rather segment. Let's finish off with our regular weekly segment we call Pick One. All right, Hyung, as usual, do you want to start things off for us?
Sure thing. Let's talk about off-season investments already. It's September. Prices are going to go down, guys. World Series hype's going to go up and then crash. So it's if you're in the selling period, it's a good time to sell your baseball slabs. But I like this time of year because there's a big buying opportunity, I think, from that October to basically February period. So if I'm going to invest in a guy for next year, and I picked 2 young studs, obviously I like the prospect chasing, but we're not going to go super prospect. We're going to put 2 players that I think is the future of MLB baseball, which is Bobby Witt Jr., who's absolutely tearing it up this year. As a 24-year-old, which is crazy. He's going to 30-30. Probably within the next couple days. He's hitting almost 340, leading the league in average. He's going to have 100 plus RBIs. 40 plus doubles. Like, this guy is locked in. And for $3 million he's making this year, totally turned around Kansas City Royals to be a playoff type contention team. So for me, Bobby Witt Jr. is the future of KC. I think, even though we all said, what impact is KC going to have in MLB? Nobody really likes the Royals. I think he's changing the narrative, which I love to see. Superstars tend to do that. So I'm going to go with the hyped player right now, which is Bobby Witt Jr., a PSA 9 Bowman Chrome Blue Refractor Auto, his 2020 Bowman Chrome. This is what I was chasing back in the hype of the hobby as well. Nobody wanted Bobby Witt, which was crazy. He was en Volpe. Jason Dominguez was chasing this product. A Blue Refractor PSA 9 last sold for $30,450. Okay, a PSA 9, a Blue Refractor number to 150. Our other person that I'm going to pair this up is another guy I still believe in, is Julio Rodriguez, who's having such a bad season. We're talking, after 30-30 last year, after being kind of like the front of Topps even in the beginning of 2024 season, Julio Rodriguez is hitting about 250 with, 13 home runs. Very, very average season for someone like Julio Rodriguez. And his 2019 Bowman Chrome Blue Refractor Auto, BGS 9.5, sold for $2,325. We're talking, this was a massive, massive card last year. And now Julio, and this is what I think Julio is going to have a massive 2025 season. Because usually, this is my reasoning. Usually players like this, they're so good that they have to fail in order for them to reach their potential. And that's the kind of like the evolution of when you're in your early 20s, you figure this out. So by the time you're 25, 26, the reason why Ohtani's so good is he's 29 years old. He had many years to figure it out, and we've seen it. He struggled in the big leagues, a year or two, and then you start figuring out and becoming the player you're able to become. Mm-hmm. And guys like Julio Rodriguez have similar, style play as like Ronald Acuna Jr. I would even put Jackson Chourio mimics that Julio Rodriguez type build and Ronald Acuna Jr. type player. I think given that, J-Rod is healthy, he's the next superstar, MVP type player. Even though this year is a flop, his prices have retracted probably over 50%. I would say 60-70% at peak, maybe even more. I think he's a buying period this offseason because that even $2,300 price point might even go down even more. So as a buyer from October to February, I'm monitoring these prices. But what are you guys picking?
Wow.
It's easy for me. It's Julio all the way. Just the value is there. And I actually bid on that 23. So I think I bet 22.
Oh, no
so
way.
I lost by $100. But I'm all in on these are the players that I like to target every year.
Yeah.
The guys that have the hype and they just have a down season. We talked about it for football with Justin Herbert. The pedigree, the hype, just a down season for whatever reason. But the talent is they have such a great talent that you just can't ignore it. You got to believe to a certain degree that they'll figure it out. And I feel like Julio Rodriguez kind of falls into that bucket. Bobby Witt was that player for me last year. He didn't have a down season, but I just sensed that he could take that next step, Right. And obviously I didn't expect him to take the step that he did. It just exceeded my own expectations still. And I'm kicking myself that I didn't buy the Bobby Witt Jr. Bowman Chrome cards back then. So I feel like I learned my lesson and I'm actively looking for our J-Rod card at these prices now. So easy.
Just to give you context, Bobby Witt Jr. is at a 9 WAR this year. which is
Wow.
insane. 9 WAR versus Julio Rodriguez. I think he's at a 2.7 WAR, which is very average for him. So which is crazy. A 9 versus a 2.7.
Yeah.
And Bobby Witt, yeah, I'm with Clark. I wish hitting myself that we were, because I remember Hyung was like, "Yo, you guys should invest in Bobby." We're like, "Yeah, we will," like maybe one day. And it's like, "Oh, shoot!" But you know what? The listeners don't know, but Hyung's you sent like was it an article or something, a certain observation you had, which was like all of these stud
Trends.
players trends. Yeah, a thing that you saw where it was like all of these stud players have like a fourth year breakout or a fifth year or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like Tatis, Acuna, Vladdy, all these
Vladdy,
big,
yeah.
yeah, all these big boys had the exact like in that fourth year or whatever. It was like a monster breakout. And the first person I thought of when we were chatting, we're like, oh, it's Julio Rodriguez. Like he's like primed after a really bad season to kind of go back up on an upswing. So Bobby Witt, I'd imagine his prices are fairly high. Some could maybe even say it's not high enough because he's for a guy who's doing this well, the prices should be even crazier. But Julio clearly is pretty low, and I think he's primed to have another bounce back. Similar to Vladdy, I think the three of us are probably kicking ourselves a bit to not buy
Hmm.
Vladdy at super low prices earlier in the season. So yeah, I think I'm going to go with Julio as well.
Nice. And I think the reason why I said this was like that's the way I usually think about buying cards. Is it's not necessarily do I believe in Julio more than Bobby Witt Jr. It's like from a price point standpoint and a timing standpoint, I think that's the more important decision whether I invest in a card versus a player, right? So in this case, I think Julio's going to have a massive season. His prices are down. It checks off 2 of the 3 boxes that are a great investment for me versus someone who you kind of already missed that hype. Like Bobby Witt had that hype and then tanked. And then because whoever invested in Bobby preseason did very, very well because they believed in Bobby as an athlete, right? And you make the purchases when people aren't making the purchases. That's the whole point of supply demand and why prices are low. But that's what it means, in my opinion, to when people say, oh, sports cards not an investment. Well, it depends on how you're looking at it, the time cycles, the longevity, the player itself. And I believe in both players. I think both players are going to be the future of baseball. And I think Julio is a great buy in the offseason, in my opinion. And I said that with Vladdy. I have a email I sent to myself, I would say 2 months ago. And Vladdy's lines were like 270, like 18 home runs, and people were like, it's typical Vladdy. I wrote that email and I'll show you guys. I said he's going to finish with a line of 321, 33, 105. And to me, it's like, you can't give up on these young studs, man. Like I'm telling you, these guys, there's a reason why Vladdy's worth 300 plus, for instance. And people are saying, no way 3 months ago. And now they're like, sign him. And it's that typical mentality of whatever happens in the news is my opinion on it. You got to be way ahead of the game. You got to believe in what your instincts are of why you believe in that player and card, and you got to stick with it. And that's when I think you'll be very successful in this hobby. If you're looking at it from an investment standpoint, is you got to actually play the game where you're doing your due diligence of why you believe this is a good investment. So this was kind of like a perfect example that I wanted to kind of bring up, and timing of the market is massive, and this is its case. So I'm going with Julio as well.
So,
Nice.
so
I like
you're
it.
saying continue going with Luis Robert is essentially what you're telling me.
If you want to invest in anybody in the Chicago White Sox, yeah, like I think you could only go up from here, right? But I think it costs more to hold Luis Roberts cards than to actually sell them. I think they're at a negative right now, so especially the base stuff, right? So yeah, go all in on Luis. I think you can only go up.
Yes, sir. All right, John, you got one?
Yeah. So my 1v1, is inspired, Clark, by your, I don't know if you actually posted on social media, but inspired by your Anthony Bourdain deal.
Yep.
So, over the last 24, 36, or the last number of years, sports cards have gone up and down. And I think everyone noticed that people were especially investors were continually chasing the next best thing, right? So it's like the big four sports, and then the big five became soccer, and then people start to chase F1, and then F1
Yep.
kind of went down, so you start to chase Marvel, et cetera, right? So there's all these, you can see this alternative investment, so-called, we're starting to hit some peaks, vintage cards, et cetera. So my 1v1 based on all of that is going to be, and I feel like everything is now leveled. Everything has peaked, and everything is at where they should be. A lot of things are where they should be. So from here on from a completely investment perspective, would you do big five sports? We're talking football, basketball, hockey, baseball, soccer. So big five, or would you invest in anything alternative? It could be, I don't know, tennis, golf, TCG, Allen and Ginter, pop culture autographs. Anything alternative to the big five.
That's what I miss about John being on the podcast. We would have never thought of this 1v1.
We're too narrow-minded, Clark.
But I like this question. My gut is to go with the big five because it's stable. But then I feel like if you're including all the other categories, it really only takes one. If it's like emerging markets, right? It only takes one to just go off to cover any losses. So I feel like if you're giving me all the alternatives other than the big five, it's got to be one that'll pop off, whether it's celebrity autos or even TCG, one of those TCG games. So I don't know. I feel like I'm going with the odds. I'm going to go with the alternative in this case.
Interesting.
Take the risk.
I'm going to stick with what I know. I think that's that's the most important thing for me. Is what I've learned from this is you could chase out, especially if you're looking at it from, if you're tied into sports cards because you love it and it's an investment. I think the best formula is loving what you buy as well, because I think, or at least knowing that market really well. And I agree with Clark. Like I'm a big opportunist when it comes to emerging markets. I love I think sports cards in general is emerging market, for instance. And that's the way I've always seen it. But within that emerging market, you have emerging markets as well, which is what John's referring to. But for me, it's like I've been in depth with the sports cards, specifically baseball market, some basketball and football, over the last 4 years, really every day kind of. So it's like me seeing these trends now and understanding how everything is kind of coming together. It gives me a better position to make my financial investments or decisions. So I'm going to stick with the big five, the S&P 500, because I think that will outperform any emerging markets from a long-term perspective. And I like I don't like flipping as much as I do flip. We talked about this years ago, like 2 years ago, when we knew that there was going to be a huge crash in the market. What are you guys focusing on? We all said we're focusing on better long-term investments, not necessarily chasing that flip. And I'm the same way still. It's like, I would like to eventually build that multi-million-dollar collection. And that might be how it looks, and the ups and downs that you go through it might be buying, selling, trading throughout that. But that's what my goal is in this hobby as an investor and a collector, is to build that portfolio where I'm super proud of. So I'm going to stick with what I know and what I love. And that's going to be the S&P 500 in sports cards.
Nice. Yeah, you know what? The good part about any collecting now, I personally feel, and I don't have any stats to back this up, it's just feeling from what I'm seeing in social media and from card shows and pricing and stuff like that. Again, I think everything is kind of leveled out and everything has corrected and is where it needs to be. So from a collector standpoint, the old adage of like, buy what you love, collect what you know the best, um, collect what you enjoy the most. I think you can now pretty safely do that without feeling FOMO that you're missing out on Disney or you're missing out on F1 or the next huge chase, that you're missing out on something. So I think because we're at a pretty level space, it gives everybody, real collectors, the opportunity to collect what they love. So I am going to pick the big five too, because that's what I love, right? We're all in this for sports mainly, and we enjoy watching sports, enjoy watching baseball. I enjoy watching hockey and basketball. So I think the answer for me, and this could change for everybody depending on what you like the most, but big five for me is what I enjoy the most. So yeah, that's the pick.
Yeah, hey, I want to make it clear. I also enjoy the big five.
I knew that was going to come out. Clark's a sellout. Clark's a sellout.
You guys will regret it when those Travis Scott cards go to the moon, all right?
Hey, you already did well with your Bourdain auto, so it's like you're living proof of it. Yeah, that was a good flip.
That's what I'm saying.
Great flip.
All right, we'll end this episode with my pick one. It's straightforward. Wemby superfractor auto for $1 million, or the triple basketball auto LeBron, Curry, Durant for $1 million.
Oh
man, this one's tough because like normally I would say the triple auto, like that's my gut.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look at it, I'm like, well, the Team USA gold medal, it's just like, do I really want an Olympic card versus kind of like the chase, the staple card? That's the card for Wemby. And obviously there's a massive risk to the Wemby. I think there's a lot more risk, but I think if Wemby becomes one of these GOAT type players, then I think Wemby's the answer for sure. But that's the problem.
It's a big if,
right? That's a huge if.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's enough hype right now that I could do really well with it regardless. So I'm going to go with the Wemby Super just because this would be more of a, I would say, short-term play for me. I just don't believe in the Topps Now one of one manufactured hype. I think that has a lot to do with it. So when that leaves, will that card still be like, wow, compared to the Wemby Superfractor? If Wemby's still dominating, it's like, hey, this is going to Golden or PWCC or wherever, I'm going to put it up. And I think I could do fairly well with that card if it goes the right way.
Okay. I can see that. John.
Yeah, I think it's an easy one for me. It's as much as there is risk with the Wemby, it's the pricing is still based on the market, completely hyped to the moon, but it's still based on the market. Whereas the triple auto, amazing card, and could go down in history as an amazing card, but it's bounty, right? We're not talking market value, we're talking bounties. So if it's like $1 million, I don't know if the bounty really is at $1 million, that's crazy. But yeah, I don't. It's hard for me to see that card being worth $1 million in the future, because like $1 million triple autos, yeah, are there any? Like I'd imagine the only one that could be $1 million is like Kobe, LeBron, Jordan, if anything, right? Like I don't think I don't even think that's $1 million. So I think triple autos is tough. Like the triple auto has to be like, I mean, we're talking 3 amazing players, may go down as, we don't know where KD's going to stand, but may go down as like top 10, top 15 all time, 3 basketball players. But yeah, I don't know. Triple auto has to be like incredible, iconic triple autos. Like baseball would be like Mickey Mantle, Ken Griffey, Shohei on one card, like something absolutely incredible. So yeah, it's easy for me. It's Wemby.
Man, I didn't know you hated LeBron that much, John.
How did you get LeBron 8 out of it?
I got that too.
it was any other player, Jason Tatum instead of LeBron.
The SGA.
Go for
Yeah.
No,
LeBron. I'll give LeBron his flowers. LeBron is the key to the value of that card. 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
There's no question.
For sure.
Yeah. No, I kid, but just to be, just to make it clear, the Wemby auto, the superfractor auto, is also a bounty technically, right?
True.
So that's they're both bounties, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So the value,
I take that back.
yeah, the value is, but in any case, I'm going for the triple auto all the way. I think you don't have to worry about any of those three players, being a dud, right, for these triple autos. I know we're Canadians, but when you talk about U.S. Olympic basketball, there's a lot of hardcore fans out there, Americans, right? Like the Dream Team, the Redeem Team. Now you're talking, well, what do they call this team? I don't even know, right? But people are going to be talking about this for a while, and I feel like the demand will always be there, especially it being a one-of-one. There will be a rich collector out there that'll pay whatever it takes if it ever comes to market again, and I think on card, I just think it's an iconic card, to tell you the truth. And Wemby, like Hyung was saying, there's a huge if to it that would make me feel really, really nervous about owning this card for a long term. And even for the short term, my pushback is the Spurs are going to suck this year, so you don't even have that upside of the Spurs winning a championship and Wemby being a key part. I think it's still going to take several seasons to get the Spurs back into the hunt. And in a way, it's kind of like Mike Trout. You're kind of wasting his talent on a very mediocre team, and who knows when they'll get back to real contention for winning the championship. So all those things, all those factors, I'm going to go triple auto. All right, great episode, guys. Again, we appreciate all our listener subscribers. If you enjoyed this episode, we really appreciate if you gave us 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcast, and we'll have a brand new episode for you guys next week. Talk to you then. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.